Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to Team Success. I am particularly excited today because I have friend and client Jayson Lowe on with me today. And if you've ever wondered about what a self-managing company really looks like or how it really operates or how to, a really good example of team success, Jayson is the poster child. So I'm excited to hear it. And particularly why I wanted to have Jayson on today is recently, Jayson, you took a 6-week and 3-day sabbatical from your business.
Sure did.
Which I'm sure was both exciting and terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to do a deep dive into what happened before and during and after and all the good things. But before we jump in, let's learn a little bit more about Jayson. And I love it because a bit of your family history goes back to early days in coach, which I think is hysterical. But tell us about Jayson. Where are you? What do you do? Tell us about your companies, what your purpose in life is, because you'll do a much better job than I will.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, firstly, if I may, I just want to say thank you sincerely for having me. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be here and to bring some value, hopefully, to your listeners. I really owe a debt of gratitude to Strategic Coach. At every opportunity, I just want to express that to you, to Dan, to Babs, the entire team. I can confidently speak on behalf of all of my teammates in saying thank you because you're really an extension of our team. You're with us in our planning, our review of what's been executed and how we go about operating in unique ability teamwork. But I will share with everybody. So I'm headquartered in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and our group of companies is quite vast in terms of what we do in the areas of the marketplace that we operate in. So our flagship business is Ascendant Financial, and we can be found at ascendantfinancial.ca. Again, that's ascendantfinancial.ca. And we specialize in that business in the education and implementation of the process of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept that was developed by my late mentor, R. Nelson Nash, who authored the book titled Becoming Your Own Banker, which has sold more than 470,000 copies for a reason, because the process works really well. And secondly, we're in the e-commerce space. So we operate Canada Prep and Ship, which we can be found at canadaprepandship.com. That's canadaprepandship.com. And we provide 3PL, so pack and prep services to e-commerce resellers who are selling on Amazon, Shopify, eBay, these platforms that are fulfillment by Amazon, fulfillment by merchant. We have 3 Amazon stores pooled together among our ownership group that generates several $1 million in revenue per year. So we wanted to own a piece of that value chain from buying the product, packing it, prepping it, shipping it. There's transactions that occur each step of the way. And so we love that business. And then in addition to that, we have a capital corporation that does lending. So we do private lending, and that business has been doing extremely well. And we also happen to be involved in the Food and Drug Administration prior notice fulfillment process for importers who bring product into the United States to sell. They have to go through a prior notice submission process, which is typically time-consuming, very labor-intensive, very expensive. And, Dan's always defining an entrepreneur as somebody who takes something from a lower level of productivity to a higher level of productivity. So we recognized it in our own businesses that it was costing us a ton of money to do that. So we built a software platform to solve that problem and take what normally would require a lot of people and a lot of time and boil that down to seconds. And so that's our group of companies. I just happen to be the one sitting in the chair privileged, to lead teams of people that do all the great work. And when things go well, the fun part is kind of like Halloween, you're handing out candies. I get to hand out credit. Hey, here you go. Open up your pillowcase. Here's a bunch of credit. But when things go wrong, I'm the first person to sharpen my sword and fall on it and say, hey, listen, the buck stops with me. And that's not a platitude in our businesses. It's not a cliche. It's just the way that we go about doing things, because I want my teammates to know that mistakes aren't fatal. Refusing to learn from them is.
Ooh, awesome first quote already. Mistakes aren't fatal, but failing to learn from them is.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I'll share this with you too. My teammates call them Jaysonisms. And so, here's one for you. So when COVID really began to really spread, and we just knew that there was going to be disruption. We didn't know to what extent. And you've heard me talk about this, where I met with all of my teammates and I said, look, this was March of 2020. And I met with all my teammates and I said, listen, I understand that you're facing fear, and fear due to an absence of control can manifest itself in either anger, fear where you're just afraid to talk about it. And I said, listen, we have a choice as teams. We can either advance or we can retreat, but we can't do both. You need to pick one now.
Yeah.
And unanimously, without hesitation, everybody said, we choose to advance. And in that moment, something that I haven't shared with you yet, I expressed to my team, I said, I want you to know something, and that is pressure is a privilege. And the reason I say that is because of everything that has prepared us for what we're about to do now. Think about your favorite sports team. I love hockey. My son has been playing hockey since he was a fetus, and I love the sport. So imagine an NHL hockey team. They're now in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the head coach sits down with his team and he says, I want you to know that pressure is a privilege because of everything that you've done to prepare for this moment. So you can either lean into that or you can let that pressure diminish your performance. Take your pick. And we chose to lean into it head on. And our business doubled in 2020.
Doubled in 2020.
Doubled in 2020. And I told my teammates, I will be the last person to sit down at the dinner table to eat. Nobody, and I'll say it again, nobody is losing their job on my watch. I will not allow that to happen. And everyone who's on the team today will be on the team this day next year. And so will you join me in advancing? Let's go get it. And so we did. And our business has more than doubled again in 2021. So we hit that double mark by, I think it was mid-July of this year. And all the credit goes to my teammates because they chose to advance, not to retreat.
That's so powerful.
Isn't that good?
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Jayson. That's just the coolest. And the other thing that you did for your team is you gave them, first of all, pressure's a privilege is a brilliant and very astute way to say that. And I think a lot of our clients, Dan gave a lot of people the courage, well, inspired a lot of the courage, put it that way, through talking about it, like choose how you respond.
Yeah.
Don't pull the covers up. Your competitors aren't getting out of bed. You are.
Right.
So what is it that you can do to make that happen? And everyone had their little moments of like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? But your story, fortunately, is actually not, I mean, other people are doing, some of them are doing really, really well. Other people are struggling. So I don't want to diminish that at all. But where you can embrace the pressure and embrace the challenge and take the opportunity to grow like crazy and find new ways, adaptive ways of creating value, huge. Because that's the point. I mean, if you get married to how you were creating value before, you're kind of stuck with that. You're focused on creating value, and the means by which you do it is different. Like before we were in person, now we're virtual. Okay, doesn't matter, right? But I have to say, doubling, that's you, my friend.
Well, I'll tell you, in our e-commerce business, in our pack and prep facility, the warehouse, COVID hit.
Right.
When we had to shut down.
Right.
Because of the provincial health guidelines, the facility was shut down. Well, people are scared. Yeah. And if the leader steps in and is scared, well, that's going to be transferred to everybody.
100%.
So for me, I have always tried to be someone who walks calmly through the halls when things are chaotic.
Nice.
And just slow down, calm down, got everybody together and said, look, this is actually a great opportunity because we were running like crazy. Now we've got an opportunity to optimize, to take a look at our process, to get some of those special projects going. Don't worry about the cash flow. We're going to be okay. We're going to be fine. So everybody felt this like sense of, oh, okay, good. My income is fine. I can still provide for my family. I'm going to be okay. And we blossomed through that versus succumbing to fear. I'm not in fear. I'm a bit of an odd duck. Like, you've got the fight or flight syndrome. Yeah. And, think about, oh gosh, and we have to give amazing gratitude to our frontline responders. I mean, these people run head on into situations that would terrify most people. Sure. And in business, it's a heck of a lot easier to do that in business versus running into a place where somebody's got a firearm and they're not very happy to see you.
Exactly.
So we just run head on into it. And I love my teammates. They do the good work every day. I'm privileged to lead.
Cool. Well, I love hearing your leadership wisdom, and I can't wait to see how you applied it in the circumstance we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I think you raised a really good point. And I think entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial team members with the right leadership, our nervous systems are a little different. Our nervous systems are a little bit more cued to what other people would consider to be danger.
Yeah.
We kind of find it exciting. With everything changed, and it was like, oh, we get to make it up. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Now I don't like the stories of people dying. That was horrible. But I was locked away in my house, as most of us were. And it was actually this incredible opportunity to do things differently. So I know for me personally, it was cool. What can we do? This is really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you still need some of those securities about, everyone's income. And this is why you want to have dry tinder? Is that the question? Is that you want to have some cash in reserve for just these things, and you want to have capabilities in reserve so that you can adapt. So I think your point about entrepreneurs and their teams and your nervous system, things that other people find terrifying, we're like, oh, that's interesting. And sometimes you're like, oh, that's exciting.
Oh, bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
But the percentage of entrepreneurs in the population is like 4%. It's not very high. So if you think about it, only a few people, including some first responders, who actually are like, ooh, danger equals excitement versus terror. Now, not to say there aren't some things that terrify entrepreneurs, because there definitely are, but there tend to be different things. Boredom being one of those things.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you did something, speaking of that, you did something sort of terrifying. You took a 6-week and 3-day, and I'm quoting you from a workshop that we were in together, sabbatical from your main business, right? Is that from Ascendant Financial? And
that's correct.
By the way, awesome title. I love Ascendant. Very cool. So first of all, let's talk about how that felt. Where did that idea come from? What inspired you to think, this might be interesting / terrifying? So what kind of inspired this whole idea of taking a sabbatical?
Well, it all began really when Dan Sullivan and Joe Polish were talking on a podcast, on the 10X podcast.
Okay.
And Joe had been sharing, his plans to take a 1-year sabbatical.
Yes. Which is, by the way, is 2021, the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought to myself, wow, this is really interesting and scary all at the same time, because I didn't think of or envision myself taking a year, but I thought, you know what, maybe I should do this. Maybe I not only owe it to myself and to my family, but I think I owe it to my teammates too. So I started thinking about it and processing it. And Dan was kind enough to introduce me to the Genius Network. And he thought, hey, you should come check out an annual event, see what you think. And so I went there, and it was about maybe halfway through day 1. And I was out on a break. Everybody was out just getting a refreshment, and crossed paths with Dan. And he goes, hey, so is it all that is cracked up to be? Are you enjoying it? And I said, I absolutely love it. And so became a member. And that's what inspired me, was Joe Polish. I have a lot of respect for him. And I thought, you know what? If he can do it, so can I.
Yeah. Mr. Connected, Mr. Travel, Mr. Front stage all the flipping time.
Yeah.
Joe can do it. And he was actually inspired by a friend of his who the guy's son called him up and said, Dad just passed away.
Yeah.
And it was a close friend of Joe's, age 59, I think.
Yeah. Worth a lot of money and just gone. And, I thought to myself, okay, this is something that I want to do. So I talked to my family about it, had their full commitment, support.
So was this in 2020 or 2021? When were you at the Genius Network? How soon before you took the sabbatical did you have the idea?
I attended my first Genius Network event in November of 2019.
Yeah.
So it was really the beginning of 2021 when I started to have these conversations, and process my feelings about it with my family, with my teammates. Everybody was full of encouragement, full of support. Hey, we're going to be just fine, because I preempted everybody months in advance. I said, look, this is the time frame that I'm planning to take away. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to truly honor it, that I'll try to meddle or stay in touch with the business. And so my teammates got together and said, that's not going to happen. They changed all my passwords to everything. they changed the alarm code to the damn office building.
No.
So yeah, no, I'm not kidding. And so
they ganged up on you in the best way possible.
Yeah. And, and we'll get into the sabbatical itself. But again, I thought to myself, okay, Joe Polish, here's a guy who has ownership interest in more than 20 businesses. I'm not quite there yet. I'm only at 7. And I thought to myself, I need to do this. So I took the leap and I did it.
Okay. So when did you take it? Just so people have a good idea of the time frame.
Well, I was away mid-July all the way through till beginning of September.
Of 2021.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So about a year and a half worth of planning roughly?
Yeah. Well, it was just under a year.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's interesting. So now before we dive into how you did it, tell me a little bit more about your feelings about it. So was it kind of equal, excitement versus terror?
Oh God.
What was some of the thinking that was going on in your head?
It scared the shit out of me, to be honest with you. And the reason...
So true.
The reason is that I was manifesting that fear and it was unsubstantiated. Mm-hmm. My teammates do a great job and I trust them implicitly. And I thought to myself, okay, if trust really matters, then you need to do this and get past your fear. Yeah. Everything's going to be okay. And the fear manifested primarily because I genuinely love being in the trenches with my teammates every single day. And I shared this with you previously. I'm a workaholic. Yeah. That is a publicly accepted form of addiction. And I am an addict.
Yeah.
And so I, again, thought to myself, okay, it's there. I'm feeling it. And, Dan Sullivan was very encouraging. He said, the only way to learn how to do a sabbatical is to go do one. That's the way you're going to learn how to do it.
Very true. Learn by doing. So it sounds like you weren't really worried about your team. It was more worried about you and what you would do or what it would be like not to have that work environment around you and do your normal tasks.
Yeah, because downtime can be very dangerous for me.
Okay, tell me more about that. So dangerous because you get bored or restless or...
Yeah.
Well, we sometimes joke that entrepreneurs are really great firefighters. They're also really good arsonists. Because they're bored and they need a fire to put out, so they go start one, right? I always say a bored entrepreneur is a very dangerous creature. I say that with love, but it's true. Yeah. So I don't know if that was the path you were going down, but that's what it makes me think of.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't really know how to be with that much downtime. And so that's where I felt the danger, having been, a workaholic for so many years and just being totally immersed. Like the businesses never escape you.
Not with 7.
No.
So I think some people are going to, first of all, the distinction between being and doing, you're used to being so busy doing. It's called business is busyness for a reason, right? It's not too far off. And that switch to being is actually a very astute way of talking about it and thinking about it, to my way of thinking. It's interesting. I'm sure some people are going to want to know at this point, did you deal with your other 6 businesses when you took a sabbatical from this one, or was it from everything?
I was shut off from everything. Everything.
Cold turkey.
Cold turkey.
All right. So what kind of planning? I know some people are dying to know this. I am dying to know it. So as people are listening, I can almost hear the questions. So what did you do to prepare? Did you use any coach tools? Did you sit down and go through some thinking like what could happen? What to do if this happens? What to do if that happens? What happens if, I always joke about blood and fire. I'm not really joking. What would happen if the building burnt or something got hurt or whatever? Like, did you talk through those scenarios? What kind of thinking did you do with your team ahead of time?
Yeah, I met with my team members and I asked them to talk to me about processing their feelings about me going away on this sabbatical. I reinforced with them that I trust them implicitly and that they are really, truly empowered. And I know that they've demonstrated that through their performance and how they deal with things. But I reinforced that. And I said, look, there would only be a few reasons why I would be contacted by anybody.
What are those?
Those would be if there was a nuclear event.
Love it. Okay.
So that would be one.
And you'd probably be reaching out to them at that point, but okay, good. Yeah.
And then something severe in terms of happening to a client or to a teammate.
Got you.
Because I care about my teammates, I care about my clients. And
the relationship related thing would qualify. which
Absolutely.
totally, it's like if someone got hurt or you'd want to not be on radio silence while that happens. So
That's a 911. Like
100%.
get in touch with me right away. And no matter where I am. And I said, you know what? The rest is up to you. And I told them, I said, the only thing that you cannot do is you can't fire me and you can't sell any of the businesses.
Those are good things to put in place, by the way.
So no involuntary termination, and you cannot sell any of the companies.
Not like the Steve Jobs situation.
So,
oh my gosh, I love it. So before we leave this, how did they feel about it?
They were excited.
Because I know this is one obstacle that I hear all the time, having coached team members for 26 years plus now, is every entrepreneur I know is afraid of what their team will think. I just coached on this an hour ago, in a webinar. It's like, my team's going to resent it. And that's the fear, but it's never, ever been the reality. Your team's actually usually thrilled that you're going to go. And first of all, they're going to get their darn work done because you're not in their way. And then second of all, they really like when we're rested, rejuvenated, and happy versus cranky, tired, and cantankerous, because we're no fun to work for then. Okay, so tell me more about your team. You said they were pleased.
Oh, they were excited. They were happy for me. I felt that sincerely. I don't know how to micromanage. I never want to be good at it. It's all in the preparation. And when you prepare your team, when you prepare your players to go and get the job done and go get the win, then if you're thinking you're going to do all the coaching while the game's underway, you've missed the whole point.
I love it.
You've missed the whole point of preparation. And so I felt like my team was prepared to step onto the field and win. And so all I had to do was just kind of sneak out the back door. And when I turned around, if I tried to open it, it was locked.
As I said, they closed it and locked it on your way out.
Yeah. And then I had to get in my car and just drive away. And, the game goes on, right?
That must have been a funny day when you, like a kind of a weird feeling. You're like, okay, the door's locked after me. I'm driving away and I'm not coming back for 6 weeks and 3 days.
Oh, gosh, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I can remember it clear as day. So I was in my kitchen at home and I just kind of leaned over the island and I looked at my wife, Rebecca, and I said, oh my God, did I do the right thing here? And she said, if you can't make it past 3 days, like, I'm going to book travel and I'm going to get you the heck out of here. Because she, being the closest person to me, she didn't think I was going to be able to do it.
She knew you were a workaholic. Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, you're going to be driving me crazy by day 3. She was just a big ball of nervous energy. So I said, okay, pressure's a privilege.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to preach it, you better believe I'm going to walk that walk. And I shifted my mindset in an instant. Pressure's a privilege. I'm prepared, I think.
Yeah, you find out.
So I'm just going to take it one day at a time.
Cool. Okay, tell us about your sabbatical. Like, what did you do? What was fun? Did you travel? Because I actually think for people who have trouble, I would say, having unstructured time at home, or at least local, like, we actually coach people, take structured time away at the beginning. Like, I actually told someone today on this webinar, I said, have someone kidnap you. You're terrible at my husband kidnapped me once, watched it twice. It was great. Put quotes around kidnap here. But he just took me away and I'm like, oh, okay. Otherwise I just would have been working. So have someone kidnap you and just take you and keep you busy, because we're not good at going from workaholics to being a couch potato.
Right.
That change of state is not going to happen.
Right.
So having time away being structured is really good. Then you can progress to having time away that is unstructured. Again, your way. I often tell people, if they're new to this, to book a non-refundable airline ticket to somewhere in a very different time zone.
Yeah.
So it's a pain in the butt to communicate back to the office. Eventually you can work to being, home structured. And then eventually the gold standard is home and unstructured. But there's a little bit of a process. I think you may have just jumped right into the deep end of that one. So, okay, what the heck did you do during your sabbatical?
Oh, so I had a chance to go to La Quinta, California, which I love to do each year. Coincidentally, at that time of year, when it's about 85,000 degrees Fahrenheit down there. And I enjoy the heat.
Warmer than Edmonton? Yeah.
Way warmer. And so a few great friends of mine and my brother-in-law, we headed down, spent some quality time there, and it was a lot of fun. I got to relax. I really truly felt like I was replacing my batteries, as Dan would say. Don't take the sabbatical to recharge your batteries. Take the sabbatical to replace them.
I had not heard that.
This is just one sharp example of Dan's brilliance. So he helped me to rethink my thinking about what it would be like when I got back.
Yes.
So during the sabbatical, spending time in California, spending quality time with my kids, I never thought, honestly, that I would get as much enjoyment out of just taking my daughters for ice cream. Right, just out of the blue. And then it turned into, because I wrapped around my daughter's fingers and my son too, but it turned into...
How many kids do you have?
4.
Wow. Okay. And what are their ages right now?
My son, our firstborn, he just turned 13 this year. And my oldest daughter, she's turning 12 in December. And our twin daughters are 9.
Wow.
And so ice cream turned into ice cream almost every day. And I was completely okay with that. But I tried to be present, because I share with my wife, Rebecca, that, that's a tough thing for me because of my upbringing and, my dad always working, my mom always being away. And so I didn't really know how to be. And so I just tried. And, she said, well, why don't you just talk to the kids about it? And so I was chatting with my kids. Hey, what would you like to do? Ton of bike rides, hanging out at little ponds and watching ducks and just a bunch of stuff that, okay, I think, for people who are listening, they're going, wow, that's really not all that exciting. Like, I thought you'd be bungee jumping, diving out of an airplane, climbing a skyscraper. Like, no, I really just took time for those special moments to be with my children, to have quality date time with my beautiful wife, Rebecca. And I love to read. And so I took the time to really process what I was reading and to think about how things would be when I got back and to really rethink my thinking about my contribution to my teams, to my businesses. And so the time flew by. Like it felt like it went by really quick.
Oh my gosh. You're just reminding me of something. But before I even jump to that, so I'm normally traveling a lot. And my eldest daughter, Charlotte, who's 18, her favorite year with me was last year because I was grounded. Like I'm working on my Zoom, but I'm home more than I have been her entire life. And I was like, oh dear, I kind of feel like a bad mom, and I didn't take a 6-week sabbatical, but it was like the fact that I could come down see her at lunch or I could come down see her after school or whatever. I was just around more. I think one of the things, and Dan has said this for a long time too, we think that they want quality time. What they really want is quantity time.
Yeah.
They want to hang out.
Yeah.
They want to watch ducks. They want to go for ice cream. They just want to chill. They don't want all that pressure. I'm like, okay, now you're my focus and let's have some quality time, kid. And they're like, oh, crap. No, thank you.
And they'll hold you accountable.
Oh, totally they will, especially if you're on your phone.
They'll hold you accountable.
Especially if you're on your phone. I know.
My daughter, Caitlin, one of my twin daughters, she is so amazing. She would be like, hey, Dad, bike ride time. Let's go. You said you were going to go. Let's go. And poof. And I kind of walk up to her. We do this thing, we call it potato fries. So like you fist pump and then you.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. My husband.
So I was like potato fries. And anyway, she's cute and she's amazing. And she held me accountable. And
kids are brilliant for keeping you accountable on free days.
Oh God, totally. And I'll share this with you because this is so good. So when we started to have kids, Rebecca and I sat down and said, look, rather than have 28,000 rules and regulations, why don't we boil it down to 3?
Nice. What are your 3 rules for kids?
Be respectful,
be
responsible, and be kind.
Oh, nice.
And so most importantly, you can reinforce positive behavior by tying it back to any one of those 3 golden rules.
Nice.
And you can also address bad behavior by tying it back to those golden rules. The brilliance of children, because they have a much higher degree of neuroplasticity than adults do, is they will turn that back on you. Because I said, listen to our kids as they were conceptual and they understood what we were talking about, and we would repeat it over and over again. Our kids began to turn that back on us as well. And I said, I respect you for doing that because there are no exemptions from these 3 golden rules. It's not just about the kids.
No, there's life rules.
You got it. If I break those rules, I'm going to accept responsibility. I'll apologize. And if you accept my apology, we can move forward. And if you don't, then we can keep talking about it until you find it. Yeah. And so it serves us well. And that's how we went about it with our kids.
I think that's a brilliant bonus of this conversation. I love it. So cool. So you hung out with your kids. They held you accountable. Okay, Dad, bike ride time. Let's go for more ice cream, all the good things. And one good coaching point is if you want to take a free day, tell your children. They will keep you off your phone. They will. They're like, Mom, Dad, you promised. You're like, oh crap, I can't.
And whenever, people from my team would check in just to say hi.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Oh, God, yeah. So they would reach out and they go, hey, just check in. We miss you and we hope you're doing well. And just really kind words, just to say, hey, we're okay,
The relationship. Yeah.
And so I would kind of reply back. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, curious, how did that webinar go with, Sarblo and the team? And we'll let you know when you're back September 3rd. So nobody caved, right? Because, it's just that kind of, oh gosh, if I can just.
I know, a little bit of food for my brain.
Nobody gave me anything.
So this is cool. So I have to share a quick similar story. This was years ago. So the entrepreneur's name is Don. And I coached his team member, whose name was Tammy. And Tammy, so her entrepreneur was trying to take an entire week off, forget 6, right? He wasn't quite that far along. So she got all the coaching from me in the team programs about what a free day was, 24 hours, midnight to midnight, no work. And so she knew that he wouldn't make it past Wednesday. Kind of like Rebecca with you. So she arranged to have his phone call routed through to her. And she goes, everything's fine. Goodbye. And she hung up on him.
Yeah. Good.
So I heard this story not from her in her workshop with me, but from him. And he was laughing his rear end off. He's like, you would not believe what happened to everybody. I took a week of free days. I made it to Wednesday. Then I had to call. And guess what Tammy did? She took my call. She goes, hi, Dawn. Everything's fine. Goodbye. And she hung up on me. Isn't that great? The whole room just died. So I, of course, tell the story. And then Tammy happens to be in the workshop. She goes, please remind people that we have a really good working relationship before you encourage everyone to hang up on their entrepreneur. But that's kind of what your team did, right? And symbolically is they just were like, we're good. We'll let you know later. Yeah.
Totally.
Because what are you going to do about it? Seriously.
Oh, man. I think looking back on it, about 4 weeks in is when feelings of being expendable started to.
Yes. Your nervous system had to shift and down level a little bit. The whole thing of replacing your batteries versus recharging them, brilliant. But then you were like, okay, if they can go this long without me.
Am I needed?
Now what?
Yeah.
Am I needed? What a good question.
Yeah. I was sitting in my study at home and again, I can put myself back there. I can close my eyes and just put myself back there. I'm seated. I've got a book out in front of me. I'm taking notes from reading and it just hit me. I just sat up in my chair and I went, I'm in my study all alone. And I just asked the question. I verbalized it out loud. I'm like, am I needed? And so I talked to Rebecca about that. And she said, of course you are. And I'm not sure why that's coming up for you. And so when I got back from my sabbatical, I shared that openly, with all of my teammates. And they not only welcomed me back with open arms, people were doing drive-bys because I'm in my office here and people are doing drive-bys on Zoom, drive-bys in person. It is so good to have you back. It is so good to have you back because, I tried to feel the energy when I got back. And it was almost like roaming the halls of businesses that you sold. And like you're wandering around just checking in on how everybody's doing.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm just going to take it in for a couple of days. And then I'm going to make a very positive statement that I'm back.
Nice.
And that positive statement was what people told me afterward. They said, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed, because I bring them in and I'd be like, okay, I'm feeling really excited about whatever it is that, is coming up and that we're working on.
Yeah.
But I'm just not quite comfortable with the target that we set for it. So we're going to ratchet this puppy up a bit. And people were like, yeah, like, let's go, like, this is what I needed. Thanks for being back, And so I was making that statement like, I'm back and it's time to put our foot on the gas pedal. Let's go. And I had a billion ideas that came up for me during the sabbatical.
Yeah.
Dan forewarned me. He preempted me. He said, you are going to come back with a phone book thick size notes of ideas that you have. And I shared with my team, I've got them. How do you want me to surface them?
Right.
Like, oh God, I cannot express to you how grateful I am for my teammates. Without them, that would, of course, not have been possible.
No, but you set them up for success. You set them up not just from a capability standpoint, but from a mindset standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
There's one expression we have, which is totally appropriate now, which is you never know how good your team is until you leave.
Right.
A corollary to that is your team never knows how good they are until you leave.
Brilliant.
Right?
Brilliant.
Your team figured out how flipping good they are.
Yeah.
But that just becomes the platform for the next jump, which is what you came in. So one of the things that Dan talks about is like, we're not in control, but we are in charge.
Right.
And in charge means you charge the place with electricity. You are the fuel source. I mean, you want your team members' batteries included, don't get me wrong, but you're the one who actually brings the energy, brings the excitement. You charge. It's like you're the generator.
Yeah.
You're the one who brings that. But I was in the workshop just after you got back, or maybe it was a 10X connection session or something. But you were like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. And Dan has some brilliant coaching for you, which you went back and enacted like immediately. So can you share that? Because I think it's such a cool strategic way of looking at things.
Oh, absolutely. So when I got back, my schedule was pretty much wide open. and so I told my teammates, I was like, my plan to phase myself out is almost complete. And so when I got in session with Dan, he said, hey, so how did it go? And I expressed my feeling to him, as you know. And he said, okay, look, here's what I need you to do. I need you to meet with your teams and I need you to express to them, hey, now that we've been through this sabbatical together, so we've gone through this experience together, I want you to ask your team 2 questions, and you'll probably be pleasantly surprised at how aligned their responses are with what you're already thinking. The first question is, who, looking ahead now to 2022 and beyond, who should I be spending my time with? Right. And how should I be spending my time going forward?
Yeah.
And I, of course, during the sabbatical, as I mentioned, I was thinking about what are my contributions going to look like to the businesses going forward? And the responses that came back, and I said to my teammates, I said, listen, this is going to take a while because I want to hear from each and every one of you.
Nice.
We went through it, captured all the notes from it, and the feedback was almost precisely what I was already thinking.
So can you summarize what they said? Like, what's the bottom line like a type of person that they want you spending time? And what's the bottom line how? I'm very curious.
They want me to spend time with the leaders on our team to continue developing and growing them.
Nice.
They wanted me to spend time with and developing key strategic relationships. That fascinates me and brings me energy. I love to establish strategic relationships.
I think that's something ideally that I've coached this every week on the weekly planning call. I'm like, please, this is what your company needs you to be doing. If you're doing all the howing, this is where you're the who.
Totally.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
We need you to be speaking at more events and being out in front of the general public, being the face of the business and pushing out more content on this, the Instagrammies and the YouTubes and the tweeters and all that sort of stuff. And so
social media. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. And then in terms of, how I should be spending my time, they want me to spend more of my time growing the business in the sense of working on it and not being so much in it. And I know that any entrepreneur with any degree of experience has heard that expression so many times, been there, done that, got the t-shirt on that advice, but actually taking action and executing to it.
Yeah.
It's an entirely different matter altogether. So they were very clear with me because they said, look, much like you described, we love the energy you bring and we love setting bigger goals. There's less competition for them.
Right.
So we need you to continue to help us grow and develop. And that's what I love to do. I love coaching and developing people.
We do. Which I actually think when people actually realize they're in the growing people business, not just the growing business, it's a pretty profound shift, actually.
Yeah.
So how excited are you about your future now?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is amazing. You're now freed up from all the stuff you didn't like doing and get to really spend all your time doing what's fascinating and motivating, or what Dan would say is unique ability.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I have a question though. Are you planning any future sabbaticals?
Yes. So,
Really?
yeah. So next year, the entire month of July and the entire month of August, I will be away, and I'll refer to it as a sabbatical. But I think what I'm going to do differently this time is I'm going to remind myself that it's okay to schedule myself. Because I thought, oh gosh, I must be breaking some kind of cardinal sabbatical rule if I schedule anything. And I plan to spend more time. There are a few very important things that I want to get done as it relates to volunteering time, to really immersing myself in a few causes that I believe in. So that's what I'm going to do differently next time around. I'm going to travel, certainly, but I'm going to bring some of my capability to, a pursuit that is going to bring me the same energy and fascinate me, but it's not business related, where there's some kind of revenue benefit, or the benefit for me is going to be imparting knowledge and just helping to serve other people. But I'm going to be intentional about it. I'm going to schedule it.
Oh, that's so exciting, because you get to expand your impact beyond just business. And I know you're huge in education, especially with the message from your mentor about, essentially bypassing the banking system, which is super cool. So you have a lot to contribute, plus whatever else you're passionate about, and actually freeing up the time to make that. It's just so fulfilling to your purpose is what I'm trying to say. Like, you get to be the biggest, most serving, impactful version of Jayson that you could ever imagine because you've done this. And just cycling back to what we talked about at the beginning, what's it feel like to have a self-managing company?
Oh gosh, it's a very peaceful, stress-free existence.
Ooh, nice. And I'd even say your company is self-multiplying if you're doubling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, sorry, I keep thinking a million more questions to ask you, but it's like, did your revenue go down when you're away? That's what.
No. Oh, gosh, no. It blossomed. Like the business did extremely well.
So that's what everyone's afraid of.
Yeah.
Right? They're afraid that revenue is going to drop if you're not there. Now, this is also a bit of a blow to our egos. When in fact, that's the opposite of what happens. Sometimes it goes up, and people have been finding this with free days forever in coach, is that, oh, actually the revenue went up when I wasn't there. So apparently I was in the way, which is kind of funny. But again, if we can make the differentiation between there's how we feel or afraid of, that's kind of our ego talking a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, egos are useful, so don't get me wrong. But when you go back to your purpose, your unique ability, what you find fascinating and motivating, what your impact is, that's your creative contribution to the world, just not the kind of more status-y way of people kind of used to thinking about things. I don't know. Can you just speak to that a little bit? Because you do actually have to be willing to put something aside when you are pursuing things this way. If you need to be needed for doing the how, this strategy probably will not resonate at all.
Absolutely. And I would say that to any entrepreneur with an established business, if you are uncertain, or if you simply do not know whether or not your team can carry on without you being there, well, how soon do you want to find out? Like, how much longer do you want to delay not knowing that?
Right.
So it's all about, really, everything begins with the way that we think. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is that most people would rather die than think.
Mm-hmm. So true.
That's the truth.
Yep.
And so when you are immersed in your business and you feel like you're not expendable, you've got a bigger problem than you're even aware of.
And that's probably when you most need to get the heck out of there for a little bit.
Completely.
It's when you feel like you can't is when you need to.
Right.
Because you're fried. You're toast.
Totally.
You're done. And
I promise you, your team will love you for it. Because the 4 C's for us is, oh my gosh, that's the building blocks for growth in our business.
So let me just mention what they are in case anyone's not familiar. So the first C, well, some people would like to add clarity as a previous C, but really making a commitment, making a clear commitment to what you want. So you did it for 6 weeks and 3 days sabbatical, ending September 3rd of this year, right? But then as soon as you make that decision, you're in the courage phase, which feels, by the way, crappy. It's actually good calling that feeling a word like courage, because otherwise you're like, why am I causing myself pain? But out of that, if you can train your nervous system to be able to withstand that feeling, because you're actually on the way to something.
Yeah.
You just scared yourself essentially, which is not the worst thing in life. And then out of that, you'd actually develop the capabilities. A little nuance to this is the more 100% your commitment, the shorter the period of courage.
Yeah.
Half commitment, long courage. Long courage is hard.
And what happens to your confidence level?
Bam. Yeah. So if you want short courage, which I'm a fan of, full commitment, like cliff diving in Acapulco or something, it's like you want to get that courage quickly. So then you get the courage that develops the capabilities, because you don't have them. That's why you're scared. But that you develop the capabilities fast, like you changed your mindset on the counter talking to Rebecca. Bam.
Yep.
Like pressure's a privilege. Great line. And then out of that, then when you have the capabilities, then you have the confidence, then you make a new level of commitment, and then you scare yourself all over again, right? So that's the 4 C's if anyone's not familiar with that process, but you live by that approach, which is amazing.
Oh yeah. Part of our painted picture vision. So we get together as a team. This was influenced by Brian, who founded 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Yes.
So I read the book Willing to Fail on a trip to New York City in July of 2019. I put the book down and Rebecca was seated right next to me on the flight. And I leaned over to Rebecca and I said, I just read this amazing book. And she said, oh, that's great. And I said, I'm going to meet Brian someday. I don't know how, but I know it's going to happen.
Really?
So with Dan's invite to come to the annual Genius Network event, guess who was the speaker at the event?
No.
I'm not kidding you.
That's so cool.
I am not kidding you.
That is so cool.
I don't know if anybody's going to be able to see this episode, if it's actually going to be available on video.
They package a lot of them on Genius Network. So hopefully.
What I will say is that our vision on our website, so if you visit ascendantfinancial.ca and you just click on our vision, I'm just going to share my screen here.
Yeah,
so I got to show this to you. So take a look at this. You see this picture?
I sure. Oh, yes, I do.
So that's Brian and I at the Genius event. And so I shared with Brian how his book inspired me, in particular, the painted picture vision. So you get together with your team and you create a word picture.
Yes.
So you take yourself into the future. We decided to go 3 years, right? And we said, okay, we're sitting down. It's 3 years from today and we're looking backward. Let's create a word picture of exactly what happened.
The R factor question. I love that.
And so if you look inside this painted picture vision, so Shannon, now the story. And if you were to read this, you're going to say, oh my God, all of this has materialized. Wow. And so we set about making it real. That to me is what really kept our team so committed, because of how confident and capable they are. And
that's amazing. And you were so definite with your purpose.
Big time.
And Cameron Harold wrote a book called Vivid Vision. And he was also a co-founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So that's amazing.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, that's very cool that you met him.
I'll never forget leaving on this sabbatical. And I purposefully reached out to each one of my leaders. And I said, listen, I'll keep this short because I've got to go. But I want you to know that I care about you. I trust you implicitly. And I really believe in you. Go and make your teammates proud. I'll see you in 6 weeks and 3 days. Fair enough?
Oh my gosh, that gives me goosebumps. And it's interesting because the message that you gave them, it's going to lift them up.
Yeah.
Like, make your teammates proud. I believe in you. I mean, frankly, all of us need that message in our life. That message from one person can totally change the trajectory of someone's life. Absolutely. We just need one person to believe in us. And then, so I was talking to my friend Evan today, we attract more people like that.
Yeah.
Right. And you gave that message to every single one of your leaders. And
every single one.
They did you and their team proud.
What the leaders didn't know at the time is that I spoke to all their teammates. And I said, listen, your leader might be experiencing some strange feelings while I'm away. Would you be kind enough to have their back? And you got it. Like we're a team. And you're hearing all the things that just, you're like, oh man, I just don't want to be here with my team. I want to help them out and take the hill and all that. Right. But I just said, hey, would you mind just, and cut them a little slack too, if there's any moments of stress or any moments of pressure.
Yeah.
Would you mind having their back? Oh yeah, for sure. And so
Wow.
it's just,
You took care of both.
yeah. I didn't pull people together in huddles and express that. I was intentional in connecting with every single team member.
Cool. How many total team members and team leaders do you have all told?
Oh my God, you put me on the spot there.
Roughly, like
Whew.
bigger than a bread box?
All in all, team members 50 plus.
Yeah.
And then in terms of leaders, so our leadership team, all businesses combined would be 12 strong.
Yep.
We have some leadership roles that aren't yet filled that are going to form a part of our next painted picture vision.
Right.
And our businesses are going to grow. And when I came back and shared with our team as it relates to Ascendant, I said, I asked myself the question, why not? Why not build $1 billion business? Why not?
Love that question.
And I couldn't come up with a reason why not.
Well, let's do it.
So I just said to everybody, hope you're sitting down.
They're going to be like, what the heck is he going to come back with next summer?
So you have to set bigger goals because there's less competition for them. And what you need to do in business is, for heaven's sakes, stop worrying, stop envying, stop focusing on what your competitors are doing. If you understand what the customers you have and the customers you want to have truly value, and that aligns with what you value, your uniqueness will shine in the marketplace, because that is where your focus is on bringing that to the market. Serve the people that you have now and that you want to have, deliver what they truly value, and look at opportunities to collaborate versus thinking competitively. Dan shifted my thinking a few years ago when he said, Jayson, and he expressed this to the whole 10X Ambition group, when you begin to think collaboratively versus thinking competitively, then collaboration opportunities begin to appear everywhere. And I can tell you that Dan, much like he always is, was absolutely correct. And who, not how. My God, I could go on about that for a whole week. That changed everything. Everything. Because it's not just about the entrepreneur who goes there, who thinks, oh, okay, great, I got this new initiative, this new idea. How are we going to set about getting it done? Your teammates are thinking that way too.
Right.
And so if you are finding yourself in that, and you've even read Who Not How, for heaven's sakes, you've got to make that real. But it's not just about the entrepreneur making it real. You've got to bring that to your team. You've got to get your team in that train of thought. And the right who's, may already be there on your team. They're just doing things that are energy draining and they find crappy that some other who's going to find fascinating. So part of our painted picture vision is to weave strategic coach into our companies. That's not a platitude. We didn't just say that and say, gosh, hey, great. Now that we've got that on paper, let's hope it happens.
Yeah. This is part of your strategy.
Oh yeah. This is part of our strategy. We have team members that attend, different strategic coach programs, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love it. Well, that's our mission. Our mission is to hopefully dramatically expand entrepreneur success, freedom, and happiness. That is what strategic coach is all about. So the fact that you're integrating it in and making it so not only for you, but also for your team is like, yay, we're so excited. And that's what it's for. The point of our thinking tools and our concepts and all the things is so the entire organization can function that way, and that you can take 6+ weeks off, right? And do that confidently. And your team is confident doing that. At this point, they're going to take on the world.
Yeah.
Because they went through the 4 C's as well, which is super interesting and super cool. Oh my gosh, Jayson, this has been the best conversation. I could not wait. You've shared so much wisdom. I've written down a ton of things even the book recommendation, because I'm a huge reader too, Willing to Fail by Brian Scudamore. Is that how you say his last name? Okay. Most people would rather die than think. Great quote. Pressure is a privilege is another great takeaway. I love your Jaysonisms. Even your term rethink my thinking is a very cool way to describe that. Your rules that you've raised your kids with, ground rules, which is, be respectful, be responsible, and be kind.
Yep.
which those are amazing rules for life. And I think also just in terms of your actual tangible results, that you have doubled each of the last 2 years. And for this year, including this year, and for this year, you weren't there for part of it.
That's right.
So anyone who's thinking, oh, if I'm not there, my company's going to do worse, or I can't take time off, you just blew up that mindset. So
yeah,
I'm hoping people are having like little brain flashes as you're talking, but I cannot thank you enough for sharing your experience. And I just want to congratulate you and your team for being so self-managing and frankly, self-multiplying, because that's the other ideal part of this. And I just think you're a really strategic, wise human being. And I just really appreciate you sharing all of this with us.
Well, I'm humbled and extremely grateful. And if we can inspire even just one more entrepreneur to embrace taking time away, then mission accomplished. I love Strategic Coach. Can't express enough gratitude. Honestly, I can't really articulate it other than to say that when you really truly weave it into your organization, the tools, you take full advantage of the time that you have with great people like yourself, your teammates. Wow, great things happen.
Yeah. I think that I've been reading and listening to Napoleon Hill's interviews with Andrew Carnegie, and having that positive mental attitude and just kicking fear to the door is so powerful. And you'll get there way faster and easier than people who listen to that. Do you know what I mean? So
all day long.
I just love it. So if anyone wants to kind of learn more about your company, because your vision's on there on your website, I think it's ascendantfinancial.ca. And then list your other one as well.
CanadaPrepandShip.com. And the third would be easyfda.com. Those are our three primary in our group of companies that we talked about today. We'll book another episode and talk about the rest.
Yeah, well, it's fun because they're very disparate, but they're all based on solving a problem and making results faster, easier, cheaper, and bigger for things that you've run into. And then you just have the mindset to go and solve that problem, which for yourself and then for other people. So I cannot wait to see in a couple of years how many more companies you have. It's going to be very fun, Jayson. I love it. Again, thank you for being so generous with your time, which you very much are. I appreciate that you have it, because if you were a super busy entrepreneur not having done this, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation. So it's been great. Thank you. Just love hanging out.
Appreciate having me.
My pleasure.